In 1966, the ruler of Dubai loaded crude oil onto a barge, towed it into the creek, and pumped it into a sand embankment on the shore so it would look like oil was flowing from beneath the city itself. It was pure theater. Dubai never actually had that much oil. Abu Dhabi holds 94% of the UAE's proven reserves. Today, oil contributes less than 1% of Dubai's GDP. And yet for 30 years, the same Western analysts have been predicting its collapse. The predictions use economic vocabulary. They cite real conditional risk, and they arrive at the same conclusion every time: unsustainable. But if you strip away the models, what you find isn't really economics. It's a story about how wealth is supposed to be earned, who deserves to have it, and what should happen to those who got it wrong. Dubai keeps violating that story. The predictions keep coming anyway. And to understand why, you have to go back a lot further than most people expect and look at a framework that even its own creators eventually abandoned. To keep the story going that Dubai is a petrostate waiting to implode, you have to skip past 64 years of commercial history that came before any oil was found. In 1902, Sheikh Maktoum bin Hashir abolished all custom duties on imports. No tariffs, no processing fees. A completely open door for anyone who wanted to trade through Dubai's creek. When Iran raised its own custom duties a year later, a wave of Iranian merchants relocated from Bandar Linga, bringing their families, their trading networks, and their architectural traditions. Those famous coral stone houses with wind towers that tourists photograph in old Dubai today were built by those Iranian settlers. By 1949, the pearl industry had collapsed. Kokichi Mikimoto's cultured pearls had killed the Gulf's wild catch market, and Dubai was in desperate shape. People were eating leaves, locusts, and a spiny desert lizard called dub that, and I'm quoting the source here, tastes like chicken if you're generous and like sand if you're honest. The town had maybe 20,000 people and a creek so silted that large dhows couldn't enter either. Sheikh Rashid, who took power formally in 1958 but was running things well before that, commissioned a British engineering firm to dredge the creek. Their 1955 feasibility report contains this line of wonderful British understatement. No records exist of any recent civil engineering works of any magnitude in Dubai, and this, coupled with the isolated position of the country, make accurate estimation of costs difficult. The price tag was £388,000, extraordinary for a town with zero oil revenue. Rashid scraped together £200,000 from a local bank and secured a £400,000 loan from Kuwait. When the dredging finished, ships of 500 tons could finally enter. Trade volume jumped immediately. Edward Henderson, a British oil company representative working in the region, described a place where business worth millions was conducted with a wink and a nod, where an expanding town was operating under oil boom conditions 15 years before any oil was actually discovered. Henderson wrote a line that reads very differently in hindsight. Goodness, what will he be like if he does find oil? The free trade zone in 1902, the infrastructure investment in 1959, the oil discovery in 1966. Dubai didn't need oil to understand commerce. It needed oil to scale what it already knew. So why do the collapse predictions keep coming? Because Dubai violates a specific story about how wealth becomes legitimate. The Western economic narrative runs on a template: labor, sacrifice, deferred gratification, and productive struggle. This story has enormous power. It motivates. It organizes. It gives meaning to decades of effort, centuries, millennia even. When a country satisfies the template, Japan's post-war recovery, Singapore's climb from poverty, South Korea's industrialization, Western analysts call it a miracle and admire it. When a country violates the template, they reach for words like unsustainable and distortion. The Gulf violates that narrative. A commodity the world needs sits beneath their ground, and the world pays for it at scale. When wealth appears without the expected suffering, it triggers something that looks like analysis but functions more like defense. People predict collapse. They use economic vocabulary. They cite mechanisms like Dutch disease, rentier effects, and other things that describe real risks under specific conditions. But in popular commentary, the conditions drop away and the conclusion just hardens. This wealth is unearned, therefore, it is temporary. But the data actually contradicts that framing. Look at this breakdown. No single sector of Dubai's economy accounts for more than 26%. Trade, logistics, finance, manufacturing, real estate, construction, tourism. It's spread across all of them. Oil is less than 1%. By most measures, Dubai is more diversified than many Western cities of comparable size. And still, the default analysis is petrostate. Now, this framing has academic scaffolding. It has a name: rentier state theory. In 1970, a scholar named Hossein Mahdavi coined the concept to describe pre-revolutionary Iran, a state funded by resource rents from foreign buyers rather than taxing its own citizens. Beblawi and Luciani formalized it in 1987, arguing that rentier wealth breaks from the work-reward system because it comes from chance or situation rather than productivity. That sounds like a neutral observation. It is also a value judgment embedded in an economic model. The work-reward system is treated as the natural baseline. Any deviation from it becomes pathology. The critics within the discipline have been saying this for years. Emil Rutledge, publishing in the OPEC Energy Review in 2017, pointed out that the modern idea of rent as essentially constituting unearned and thus unwarranted income is completely disconnected from the original concept. Ground rent in classical economics is a legitimate charge for extracting depletable sovereign resources. Scholars treat oil revenue different from coffee or cocoa revenue, and that difference has nothing to do with economics. Oziavuz and Schmid, writing for the French Institute of International Relations in 2015, named it directly. Quote, "This is where the hint of Orientalism that is sometimes evoked surfaces." Analysis of rent in the Middle East appeared to support cultural prejudices. They called classical rentier state theory implicitly culturalist, betraying the energy-scarce West's unease concerning the unequal distribution of energy resources. And even Luciani, one of the two scholars who built the original theory, eventually distanced himself from it. He said, quote, "It has never been my understanding that the rentier state paradigm should be either the sole or the overwhelming tool of interpretation. The framework's own architects walked away from it." But outside the academy, in Western media and popular commentary, the theory hardened into a genre. Martin Peretz, then editor-in-chief of the New Republic, wrote in 2008 that Dubai was a Potemkin village, a house of cards, a mirage that would collapse soon. The trigger changed over the decades. The conclusion never did. And the comparison that exposes this most clearly is Singapore. Singapore and Dubai share state-directed economic development, authoritarian governance structures, sovereign wealth funds, zero or low income taxes, a deliberate strategy of becoming a regional hub, deep dependence on migrant labor, and a founding autocrat whose personal vision drove the entire project. Look at this side by side. Same policies, same structures, completely different vocabulary. When Singapore intervenes in markets, it's called competence. When Gulf states do the same thing, it's called distortion. Both are state-directed capital. The difference in how they're discussed tells you more about the analyst than the country. By the way, if you're learning something from this, please hit subscribe. I break down stories like this almost every week. All right, let's keep going. The financial crisis gave the skeptics what looked like vindication. Dubai had borrowed roughly $80 billion during a 4-year construction boom. Property values had quadrupled between 2002 and 2008. And then the Atlantis Hotel on Palm Jumeirah opened on November 24, 2008 with a $24 million launch party featuring a Kylie Minogue concert and fireworks visible from space. This was less than 2 months after Lehman Brothers had collapsed. By early 2009, property prices in some areas had fallen 50 to 60%. On November 25, 2009, Dubai World announced it would seek a 6-month standstill on $59 billion in debt repayments. European stocks dropped 3%. The Dow fell 155 points. Bank of America warned this could, quote, escalate into a major sovereign default problem, which would then resonate across global emerging markets in the same way that Argentina did in the early 2000s or Russia in the late 1990s. For the collapse crowd, this was the ending they had been riding in their heads for years. Abu Dhabi stepped in with approximately $25 billion in support. The Burj Khalifa opened in January 2010, renamed from Burj Dubai, at the ceremony to honor Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed of Abu Dhabi. Everyone understood what that name change meant. 10 months after opening, 825 of its 900 apartments sat empty. Coverage was gleeful, the world's tallest building as a monument to hubris. Then something happened that predictions couldn't accommodate. Dubai recovered. Dubai World restructured $23.5 billion in debt by May 2010. Nakheel, the Dubai real estate developer, repaid its structured obligations ahead of schedule and posted 860 million dirhams in profit by year-end 2010. By October 2012, Burj Khalifa occupancy hit 80%. By 2024 and 2025, it was running between 85 and 90%, with capital values reaching nearly 4,000 dirhams per square foot, a 60% increase since 2021. The skyline surrounding it didn't exist when the tower opened. Dubai's population doubled from 1.8 million in 2009 to 4 million by August 2025. Property transactions hit 205,100 residential sales worth $147 billion in 2025. And the city itself attracted more greenfield foreign direct investment projects than any other city on Earth for the 4th consecutive year. The same pattern played out in miniature with Emirates Airline. In 1985, when Gulf Air cut service to Dubai, Sheikh Mohammed started a national airline from scratch. 5 months to launch, $10 million in seed funding, 2 planes wet release from Pakistan International Airlines. First year, 260,000 passengers and 10,000 tons of freight. Gulf Air's profits dropped 56%. Analysts called it vanity. By fiscal year 2024 to 2025, the Emirates Group posted $34.9 billion in revenue and $6.2 billion in profit on a fleet of 260 aircraft. It is the most profitable airline in the world. Jebel Ali Port, dismissed as overkill for a small Gulf emirate, now handles 15.5 million TEUs annually ahead of Rotterdam and Hong Kong. Capacity built ahead of demand reads as hubris to forecasters who assume demand is fixed. It reads as strategy to anyone who has watched Dubai for more than one cycle. Mohammed El-Abar, chairman of Emaar Properties, put it simply: crises come and go, and cities move on. Now, the real risks do exist. Concentrated decision-making in a single ruling family, dependence on Abu Dhabi as a financial backstop, as 2008 clearly proved, a structural reliance on migrant labor with limited political voice. An honest look would dig into those vulnerabilities with data on their own terms. There is plenty to scrutinize, but that's not what the predictions actually do. They keep defaulting to oil will run out for a city that has already well ran past oil and kept growing. They keep treating diversification data as a footnote and the petrostate label as a headline. The crisis was real. The recovery wasn't supposed to be. And the predictions have been wrong for 30 years because they were never really about economics. They were about sustaining a story of how wealth is supposed to work. Stories, unlike economic models, don't update when the data comes in. Sheikh Rashid reportedly told an advisor, "My grandfather rode a camel. My father rode a camel. I drive a Mercedes. My son drives a Land Rover. His son will drive a Land Rover, but his son will ride a camel." He saw the timeline. The urgency that built Dubai came from that awareness, not from Western op-eds. The response was to convert the windfall into infrastructure and institutions that would outlast the oil. The analysts kept riding the collapse. Dubai kept building. If this kind of analysis is useful to you, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you want to go deeper on topics like this before they become videos, join my newsletter. The link is in the description. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.